Good evening. Tonight we're going to try to get this water block back together and see if it holds water still. I've had the copper base soaking in a vinegar solution the last couple of days. You can see it's made the water a real pretty blue color. That's from the dissolved copper in the vinegar. The reason we're doing this is because vinegar has what's called acetic acid in it. That's what gives it its flavor if you're using it on food. Otherwise, it works as a great cleaning solvent. As you can see here, it's actually cleaned that copper up pretty good. I have to say I'm pretty happy with that. However, we have to stop that acid reaction with the copper, otherwise it'll give a green patina to it and it'll get all gross again. We don't want that. So to counteract that, we're going to give it a bath in some baking soda solution. There you go. See that fizzing action? That's the reaction with the baking soda and the vinegar. If you've ever made a volcano back in school, you'll know that when you mix baking soda and vinegar together, it expands and releases a bunch of carbon dioxide. So that's what we're seeing happening here, just on a little bit of a smaller scale. There we go. And since our baking soda is a base and our vinegar is an acid, that should neutralize any reaction that we had going on there. Ah, she ain't bad. She ain't bad. And now that we have that cleaned up, I'm going to need a gasket material to seal up our top of our water block back to the base here. To do that, I could call up SwiftTech and see if they sell these paper gaskets. I have a feeling that they would laugh in my face though and tell me to pound sand. So what I'm going to do is show you something that's going to be handy not just for this project, but if you do a lot of car projects too. What I've got is this stuff. Now what this is a roll of basically make your own gasket material. So if you have an odd part or the gasket's going to be 40 bucks to order from Germany or Japan or whatever the case is, or you just need it today, this stuff comes in real handy. Or if you're working on a custom project like we are, you can make your own. Now luckily, I was somewhat smarter and kept the old gasket. So we can use this as a template on here. You could do this with any gasket. So if you pull the gasket off your car and find out that it's going to cost an arm and a leg to get it, or it's going to take 2 weeks to get here from the other side of the world, you can use this to make your own. And it cuts nice and easy with scissors. I'll go back to our gasket here, and we'll trace the inside opening. You can see our gasket's a little messed up here, so we're going to eyeball the curve there. Across about like that. Okay. Now getting the scissors in here is possible, but it really sucks. So what we're going to use is the old utility knife. Well, the other blade was apparently too dull to cut through it, so new knife, new blade. Oh yeah, that went right through it. Okay. The right tool matters. Look at that. Like a hot knife through paper? Look at that. Yeah. That's working good. Ha! Nice. So the last thing we got to do now is we need to put some holes in it so we can pass the screws through. So I'm going to carefully line up the old gasket here. Again, we're going to use it as a template. And just mark all of our holes. It's just like being a kid again. And there we have our holes traced. Now we need to drill a hole through it to pass the screw through. And again, we can use our old gasket as a template to figure out what size drill bit we need. That one's a little bit too small. That one's just right. And we've got the chuck. It's time to do some drilling. We want to be gentle here. We don't want to destroy all the work we just did putting this gasket together. And this is just a sacrificial workpiece. I'm not too worried about putting a few holes in it. If you care, then you should put another piece of wood down over the top of it. Or you can do it in the grass or someplace where you're not going to destroy your countertop using a drill bit. I trust that you're not that stupid. Of course, if you're not that stupid, you probably wouldn't have left nasty-ass water in your water block to destroy it either. So, what the hell do I know? Let me clip radius this corner a little. There. Look at that, like a glove. Ta-da! One gasket. And we take our top, line up our screws, our screw holes, I should say, just like so. Now we'll start putting our screws back in. And if we did our job right, everything will just go together like it was done at the factory. Right? It's not like doing something DIY at home has ever not turned out well. Whoops. And we'll get all these on and we'll torque them down. No, I mean not with an actual torque spec, but just snug. Okay, this isn't going to be a, this isn't like an engineering competition. Now, I'm not sure it's necessary, and in fact, I'm sure it's probably not, but I'm going to tighten these in a kind of a crisscross pattern. In a car, you'd want to do that so that you don't deform the gasket as you torque it down. That way you're applying even pressure crossways. If you just do it in a circle, what ends up happening sometimes is you'll end up pinching the gasket on one side, and then when you clamp it down, you'll end up with a small leak there, or even tearing or destroying the gasket, which you don't want to do, because then you got to go back and redo all the work you just did. So the way I'm torquing these down is going crossways. So I've gone this way, this way, this way, this way. And now I'm going to do these top edges, this top corner here, and then this other bottom corner. Now, since this is such a small gasket surface, I'm not sure that doing the cross torque is necessarily a requirement, but being a shade tree mechanic kind of guy, I'm going to go ahead and go with the theory that we should do it for good measure. So now we have all those torqued down. It's like we know what we're doing. Just going to give them one last little twist. Make sure there's no slack left. Yes, like that one. Got a little bit of slack in that one. So just make sure none of the rest of them are. There. There we go. One reassembled water block. So now, what I'm going to want to do is get some tubing hooked up. Now I'm not going to hook this up in a computer. I'm just going to do basically a dry run, if you will, to make sure that everything's watertight before I stick it in the computer and kill it again. So what I've got is some half-inch inner diameter vinyl tubing. This is dirt cheap at Lowe's or Home Depot, whatever your home improvement store is. I actually have some clear flex tubing that I'm going to use when I do the real final assembly. So we can just eyeball this. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're just bench testing. And again, I really like the hose clamps. So you can get the plastic little zip clamp thingies. I've never had good luck with them. These I can apply as much torque as I want pretty easily. And they're cheap, and I think they look nice. I kind of prefer the industrial look versus the fancy look, but that's just me. You're welcome to do it however you see fit. Sounds like the new puppies are outside. They found something to bark at. Come on. Oh, come on. I had problems last time when I was putting the top of this on too. So it's not quite, it's a half-inch on the shaft here, but it's got this little lip on top. So you have to get it past that little, started past that little lip, and then it goes on much easier. There we go. So this will be our output on the pump. It's going to come up, back into the radiator. Oh, get that in frame. Come up, go into the radiator, comes back out the radiator, goes into our water block. Water block's going to come back out, go to our pump return right there. And yeah, it's got a little kink in it, but we're going to work with that here in a second. And then we got to fight it to get it over this one. That was the same problem as the top barb there. There we go. Now once you figure out how to do it right, it's not quite so bad. Alright, now we need a way to fill it. The way we're going to do that is we're going to put this T-fitting in the top. That'll help us bleed it as well. There we go. And then we'll just need a little tube at the top to fill from. Just like so. Oh, forgot to tighten that one up. Whoops. Well, that would have been embarrassing. I mean, I guess no more than seeing the general condition of the rest of the system, but Embarrassing nonetheless. And there we go. So now what we got to do is we got to get some power to the pump, and then we can fill her up. So now we've got my funnel. I have a gallon of distilled water here and a PC running just off to the left of the screen here so that I can plug in my Molex connector to run the pump. And we'll probably have to cycle that pump a few times to get all of the air bubbles out of it. So right now we'll use the funnel and we'll slowly fill her up and see if she holds. Gurgle, gurgle, gurgle. There, see it starting to come up the line there to the water block. There. And then once we get to a point like where we're at right now, we'll pull the funnel out and we'll cycle the pump by plugging in the Molex just for a second. Just keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't overflow everywhere. There we go. Our gasket seems to be holding so far. So we can leave the pump running and we'll keep adding water to it. And you'll see the water bubbles working their way out of the top here. Well, if I don't overfill it, that is. So I've got the system filled up pretty well here, and you can see all the little bubbles coming out. This is all air that's bleeding out of the system, and it's getting chopped up by the impeller in the pump, which turns it into this really fine foam. But over time, as the air bleeds out, that eventually will start running clear. So at this point, we just have to let it run, and anytime we see the water level drop in here, which eventually we will see it start to drop, then we just keep topping it off as the air works its way out of that system. I don't know if you can see here, but the water level started to drop again as that air works its way out of the system. So we're just going to keep topping it off with a little bit more water each time and keep an eye on it, make sure it doesn't get all the way down to empty. As if it sucks in any air, then you're going to have to redo everything you just did to get that air back out of the system. You can see up here the water's starting to work its way. Oh, it might just go over. There you go. There you go. You see as that air comes out, works its way out through the top here, our water level starts dropping again. So we just keep adding water, lather, rinse, repeat. And as long as this T in the tube is the highest point in our water cooling loop, which it is, then the air can't really help it. It's going to want to go up. It's going to want to fight being diluted in that water. So over time, all that air will eventually find the only way out, which is up this tube. Now if you have a reservoir that mounts in like a 5 1/4 bay or one of those tubes that mounts inside the case, then you don't have to do as much of this. You just fill it with water and it starts pumping from there. You just keep filling it up until your pump stops bubbling and then put the cap on your reservoir. That works fine, but I don't like having that huge reservoir full of water in there sloshing around. It also costs more money, and since I'm on a budget, and a lot of you guys at home are probably going to be too, I feel that this is a more economical and a simpler system. The only disadvantage is this bleeding process can take a while. So if you can bench bleed this like we're doing now, that'll make your life a lot easier. However, we're still going to tear this apart again because I'm going to change out this tubing. We're just leak testing. But when we get ready for final assembly, I'll see if I can't put it together on the bench first and then move it into the case. So I was totally going to show you the next part in the water cooling system, but I forgot that I had worked on this weekend and left a mess out here. So that's going to take me a minute to clean up, then we'll get to that. Oh, here's the system. It's been sitting out in the garage running for a couple of days now. I just shut it off. We have a few air bubbles that work their way out, but other than that, not a single leak. Either the pump or anywhere around the rings or anywhere along our gasket. So I would have to say that I'm pleased as punch with that. So I'm going to tear this back down, clean it all one last time, and then pick up some paint to paint up these legs for the radiator. They're already starting to rust. They're just mild steel, so I need to put something on there if they're going to be around the water in any capacity. And then if I can get that done, then I will be able to put everything in the computer tomorrow night, and we can see what difference it makes temperature-wise, and see how our overclocking works after that. There, now we've got some better lighting too. Alright, so I've got my little T-fitting in. I've got a fill like a port, I guess, for it. All of our tubing is done. I've got my power run for the pump. It comes up to the top up here. There's an extra Molex connector up here to plug it into. She should be good to go. So I'm going to grab the funnel and we're going to start putting some water in her. Put it in the fill tube here, but leave enough of the clear left that I can see the water level in the blinds. Oh. Then we're going to go to our next gallon of distilled water. Distilled is good because we don't want any minerals or algae or any sort of biological material in there. Otherwise it's going to rot, smell, discolor, and ruin your system, as yours truly has learned the hard way. So, distilled water. We want distilled water. And then of course we want to be careful not to drop it into the computer. Just like so. I can just imagine how exciting it is watching me pour water into this thing and keep maintaining it. So I went ahead and fast forwarded a little bit here. So yeah, we're just basically bleeding the air out. Just taking our time. We've got a little bit of a drip over here on the side. That's fine. We're just using another computer to run the pump, so once it's done we'll dry that up. But it's all coming from around this lip here because this stupid funnel has these ribs on the outside. But it's what I'm stuck with, so it's what we're using. On the bright side though, the block itself appears to be leak free, as does the pump and the radiator. So yeah, we're just going to be topping it off and just watching it, make sure we don't spring a leak and we don't pull air back into the system. So we're going to be doing this process for probably another, I don't know, 15-20 minutes until I'm satisfied it's pumping good water. And then I can get it back into the house and get it fired back up. So here's where the magic has to happen. We have to get that server back into yonder rack. And if you've never worked with server racks like this, you've got a couple of rails right here that have slots right here that fit into these bolts right here that have a little chamfer or a channel on the back right here. So what we have to do is lift it, drop it in to the little sets of cutouts there, and then once we set them all in there, they'll lock into place, and then we can slide the whole thing back into the rack. Oh, here goes nothing. There we go. Now she's all lined up. And then we can just slide her in. Got little clips that hold the sides in. I'll slide it far enough back that I can still get to the water filling tube there. That should be close enough to get my wiring hooked up. Alright, it's all back together. So far, no leaks. Temperatures look good. The routing's not too bad. I really can't think of much of a better way to do it than this, so it's going to be this for a while. We got the fancy white fans on the radiator, LED fans. You can't see them very well, but they're there. Not that you can see it in this rack case anyway. I've got my little 1/2 inch plug for the T-fitting here. There is a little bit of water in there, just enough to fill up the air gap. But it's a tight fit, so that should stay watertight for quite a while. I'll check it in a few months and see if it's gone down any. Excuse me. Temperature-wise, we're looking good. We're sitting mid to upper 30s at idle. I'm going to kick off Prime 95 and we'll see what the temperatures do here. I'm going to climb up to about 70. So I'm going to go ahead and call this a success. It's been stable for me, no leaks. And I'm not looking for amazing performance, and you can hardly hear the thing run. The only fans you can hear are the ones in the sand, which we'll address in another episode. But I think we're about ready to get back to doing some car stuff. On that, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed a little bit of water cooling hacking on this old PC. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them.